Hello, welcome back to the garden. Well, so many of us, of course, are growing our own at the moment because we're off school, and it's a great thing to do if you have a garden, and even if you don't have a garden. More about that in just a minute. But when it comes to eating different types of veg that you might have in your fridge, there's all different types of plants and different parts of plants that we actually eat. I've got a few here. This is a leek, and of course it's the stem of the leek that we're after, and that's what we eat. With some plants it's the leaves, with some it's the seeds, with some it's even the flowers. If you think about broccoli or cauliflowers, that's actually the flower of the plant that we're eating. This is a pepper that was in my fridge, and of course that is the fruit of a plant. And then sometimes we eat the roots, and that's what I want to talk about today. We've got here a parsnip, there we are, a big long white root that's been cut off slightly there, and carrots as well. Now, who doesn't like carrots? This one's orange. Most carrots are orange, but in fact you can get them white and you can actually get them purple as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about planting carrot seeds because it's a great crop to grow in your garden. And as I say, if you don't have a garden, you could grow them in something very simple like this. Just an old plastic bucket you might have in the shed. If you just get your mum or dad to put a few holes in the bottom, then you can fill that with compost and you can easily grow carrots. But there's a few things you need to know when it comes to growing carrots. They've got to get down into the soil. They are, of course, a root. And so you can't have really thick, heavy soil. If you want to plant them out in the garden, you need to make your soil better. This is a sample of the soil in my garden, which has quite a lot of clay in it. And clay means the soil is very heavy. Now, if I try to use my finger and push it down into this, it is really, really hard to do. And so if we were going to grow carrots in soil like that, we would really need to improve the soil. And you can add things to it like sand that makes it a lot lighter. You can dig it thoroughly and that will break that soil up and make it easier for the carrots to go down into. This little jam jar has got compost in it that I've bought, and it is really light and crumbly. It weighs a lot less as well. If I hold them side by side, I can tell this one weighs a lot less. And if I put my finger down into it, have a look at this. My finger goes into it really easily. It's really light, and it will be really good for growing carrots or parsnips if I was putting them in containers, or in this case into a bucket, so I wouldn't have to add anything to that. Now, you might have heard that farmers and gardeners sometimes add manure to the ground. That's really just animal poo, and it makes things grow better. It makes a lot of things grow better, but it doesn't make carrots grow better. In fact, if you were to put it into the soil with carrots, it would make them forked. They would have like 2 or 3 points rather than just one. So you don't need to add that to the soil where you're going to grow carrots. Now let's talk about the seeds then. And you won't believe, if you look at this carrot and how big it is, how tiny the seeds are. Have a look at these. Now look at those, aren't they absolutely tiny, tiny little seeds? And you want to plant those as thinly as possible. That just means you don't want lots of them all clumped together. You want them as spread apart as you can. So just scatter them thinly. And the really important thing to say is that the seed has to be fresh. If the seed's been sitting around in a drawer or a cupboard for a few years, maybe your mum or dad says, oh, I had some years ago, it won't germinate. Carrot seeds have to be fresh. They have to be bought quite recently. So you can order them online because we can't get to the shops at the moment to buy seed like that. So order them online, get them fresh, and they will come up actually really quite quickly. All we've got to do now is just cover those lightly with my hand like that, just so there's a tiny little bit of soil on top of them. Give them a water, and then they will come up, as I say, really quite quickly. Leave it somewhere fairly warm in the sunshine, and you should see them very soon, as long as they are covered in water. Now, the next thing we have to talk about is a pest. Of course, carrots are really loved by rabbits, aren't they? But where I live anyway, on the outskirts of the city, rabbits really aren't a problem, but there is a little tiny pest that can be a real enemy of carrots, and it's called the carrot root fly. And you might have guessed why it's called that. It's called that because it really likes carrots and carrot roots in particular. And what happens with this fly is it flies along, it finds a little carrot plant coming up, it lays its eggs just round the top of the root, and then those eggs hatch and the little larvae that come out, they burrow into the carrots and make all sorts of holes in the carrots, and they're not very nice. You don't want them at all. Now, the one thing about the carrot root fly is it doesn't fly very high. This evening here in the garden, we've got lots of flies going around, and they're up quite high above my head here, but the carrot root fly flies really quite low. So if you have your container like this, above about 2 foot high, so you could set this maybe on a few bricks, or if you have a raised bed, it'll be that high anyway, then the carrot root fly really isn't going to be much of a problem. But if you've got a container, or maybe you're growing your carrots in the ground, then there are other things you can do. One of them is to cover the carrots with this stuff. This is called horticultural fleece, which is a really big word, but basically it's just like a very light little blanket, and it keeps things warm and it keeps some pests off plants as well. So if you were to cover, say, this bucket with that, or to cover the soil with it, then it will keep the soil nice and cozy and warm at this time of year, because we can still get some frosts, and it will also keep the carrot root fly away from the carrots. There's one other thing you can do, and it's called companion planting. Now, those carrot root flies, they really love the smell of carrots, and they can pick it up from a long way away. They don't, however, like the smell of some other things, like onions. So if you had chives, you might have heard of chives, they give off an oniony smell. It's a herb that you get in the garden. If you were to plant some of those, or I think maybe even if you were to try some scallions, spring onions, and grow those alongside the carrots, then that might keep the carrot root fly as well away from the crop. So that's called companion planting, and that's really worth knowing about as well. So that's carrots. Really easy crop to grow. A bucket just about this size is absolutely ideal, and once the carrots come up, if they are too close together, you can just pinch out some of them, because you're going to want about that distance probably at least between your carrots, and you can just pull out the ones that you don't want so that they're nicely spaced in the bucket. You'll see the foliage come up, it'll grow up, maybe be about this high. Make sure if it's in a bucket or container that you do keep it watered through the summertime. And then when are we talking? Maybe July, August time, maybe around then, late summer, you should be able to pull them out. And even if you pull them out a bit earlier than that, they might be slightly smaller carrots, but they'll still be absolutely delicious. And as I say, you can grow these orange ones, but if you're having fun at home and you can get online and get the seeds, why not try growing the purple ones? Because isn't it great to have something that maybe your friends haven't had or would never have had, tried something new, something different like that. And so this year I'm going to try and grow some purple carrots.